Bunsen from Munson Music, and we're going to talk about how you could play a song by Hank Williams called I Saw the Light. And we're going to start off with kind of that intro progression on a G major chord. When we play G major, first finger goes to the A on the 2nd fret, second finger on the low E 3rd fret, third finger on the high E string 3rd fret. And if you strum all those together, that sounds a G major chord, and it sounds really happy. And you may also want to think about putting a third finger on the B string 3rd, pinky on the high E string 3rd, and working that for your G major chord through the song. And on our intro, anyway, from the G major, we go to a D major chord. When we play D major, first finger goes to the G string on the 2nd fret, second finger on the high E 2nd fret, and third finger on the B string 3rd fret. And if you strum the D string to the high E string, that sounds a D major chord, and it sounds really happy. Now you may also want to think about lifting off the second finger and making that a D suspended 2nd, or adding in the pinky on the high E 3rd, and making that a D sus, and kind of swinging some things around D chords. Or you may want to use a D7 chord, where you do first finger on the B string 1st fret, second finger on the G string 2nd, and third finger on the high E 2nd fret. And if you strum the D string to the high E string, that sounds a D7 chord, and it sounds really nasty. And then from the D, we'll be going right back to our G major chord on our intro. So through the intro, there's a couple different ways you could kind of strum through it. You could do kind of an 8 down count, kind of on each chord. G, G, G. That would seem really, really fast for this tune. Actually kind of working downs and muting, but sometimes that can be kind of a cool idea to kind of mix things up. Or one of my favorite strum patterns through a song like this is down, down, up, up, down, up. So we took the G and tried that a lot. You'd have down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, G, down, up, down, G, down, up, down. So we tried that through the intro. You'd have G, G, chords. We start on the G major 4 times, but then we go to a C major chord. When we play C major, first finger goes to B on the 1st fret, second finger on the D string on the 2nd fret, and third finger on the A string on the 3rd fret. And if you strum the A string to the high E string, that sounds a C major chord, and it sounds really happy. Now while you're on C's in general, it can be kind of cool to lift off the first finger and make that a C major 7, or you could add in the pinky on the B string 3rd and make it a C major 9. That way you can kind of say some things around the C chord. Or another way to play C major 9 is to do first finger on the D string 2nd, second finger on the A string 3rd, third finger on the B string 3rd, and the pinky on the high E string 3rd. And if you strum the A string to the high E string, that sounds a C major 9, so you may want to think about using that for your C chord. And we do the C 3 times, and then we go back to our G, and then we do a G for another 4 times, and then G twice, and then D major once, and then we go back to G as twice kind of at the end. So we tried that with our strum pattern. Then we have G down, up, down, G down, up, down, G down, up, down, G, C, 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 G, G, our chorus part, which is the same progression. Now one other thing I think about adding to the song though is bass notes, and a lot of times on that first down of the down, down, up, down, up, you can throw in a bass for the chord. So on the G you'd have low E for the bass, on the C you'd have the A for the bass, and on the D you'd have the D for the bass. So we try that chorus with basses. We'd have G with low E bass, 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 G, kind of our G, then we're going into our next verse. Now, one other thing I think about adding to it is kind of following what I call a country feel, where a lot of times what a country bass player will do on a G chord is play the low E string or the root of the chord or G note, and they'll alternate that with something called the fifth. So if you count up 5 notes on your fingers, G, A, B, C, D, a D note is what we call the fifth. So you could do the kind of the low E string for a root, and then do a down up, and then do the D string for your fifth, and then do another down up, or just a down if you want to go Johnny Cash, but kind of root, down, up, fifth, down, up, or root, down, fifth, down, root, down, fifth, down, up, root, down, fifth, down, up. And on your D chord, you can get that same sound going between the D string to the A string. So D bass down, up, A bass down, up, D bass down, up, A bass down. And on the C chord, you can kind of go from the A string 3rd fret and then move the 3rd finger to the low E string 3rd fret to kind of get a C note and then a G note in place. So A string 3rd, low E 3rd, A string 3rd, low E 3rd. Or if you're doing on the C major 9, you can kind of do that same idea but with your 2nd finger from the A 3rd to the low E 3rd. So we tried that through our next verse chorus. We'd have the G, kind of country walks that kind of happen in the tune, and there's a couple that might be kind of cool. Like on the very last G chord, you could do, before you go to the C chord, to kind of point to the C, you could do a low E for a root, down up, and then play the open A, and then the 2nd fret on the A. Could be kind of a cool move to walk to a C chord. So you have G with a bass, down up, open A, 2nd fret on the A, or a G, down up, A, B note. And you could almost kind of reverse that idea on the last C that you have before the G, to kind of do a bass walk to the 2nd on the A, and then open A to get back to the G chord. So kind of a cool little walk to kind of throw in. So we tried that through that chorus. We'd have G, 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 walk to C, 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 B, A, G, 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 we'd be going into kind of the solo part that kind of follows that same progression. So if we just kind of kept that going, you may want to kind of take all these ideas and kind of figure out how you want to do it, or you can alternate between them, which can be kind of a cool idea too. That solo part, that we kind of repeat our verse and our chorus 2 more times, or our verse once and solo once, and then we go into kind of our outro part, which is kind of like a little piece of that solo from earlier. So we got kind of a G, G, and then a D, G, and another G. Randomly, for myself, you could play just a big G chord at the end, or there's something I call a country tag, which is kind of a cool little lick to know, where you could play 3rd fret on the low E string for a G note, and then play open A and do a hammer onto the 1st fret, and then the 2nd fret. Or you can even work that as a slide, but kind of that 3, 0, 1, 2 is kind of a double hammer on. So I'm kind of playing the open A and putting my 1st finger down and putting the 2nd finger right in front of it on the 2nd fret to get that sound to carry on one pick. So I got 3, 0, 1, 2, and then you can play open D and do a hammer on the second fret, and then a pull off back to the open D. So I'm kind of playing open D, putting my finger down to carry the sound to second, letting it fall off the string back to the open, and then you can play the open G string, and then kind of nail a big G chord at the very end. It's kind of a cool way to end it. It's kind of 3, 0, 1, 2, 0, 2, 0, 1, G. So coming out of that last little outro, you'd have kind of a G, G, but that's the basics of how you can strum through I Saw the Light by Hank Williams. So good luck.